What's up, and welcome back to a very special episode of the Kind of Funny podcast. Of course, I am your host, Tim Geddes, and today I am joined by Gia Geddes.
You didn't say it. I thought you were going to say my wife.
My wife, the married one, Gia Geddes. That's what it would be.
I'm the married one?
You're the married one now. So am I. We both are together. We did it together. The union is holy, so on, so forth, all of that stuff. But this is a big deal, though, because you are now officially a Geddes, Gia Geddes, and that is as of...
Well, I got the Social Security card in the mail a week ago or something, so
now it's like legit government official. Pretty damn cool. Yeah. And now here's the thing, real talk, since me and you were here, we can actually talk about this. Like, I'm not a big fan of the patriarchy. I don't know if you do, you know?
It's a good thing to learn at this point.
Exactly.
Relationship.
But I really didn't care one way or the other if you changed your name at all. In fact, I think that it's a weird thing for people to expect.
Yeah, you did not push it.
But like, why'd you want it?
Well, so the truth is that like my last name Harris, like pretty much no one in my extended family has it because my dad grew up as a Housekeeping. So he was like 18 when his nuclear family legally changed their name from Housekeeping to Harris. So I didn't have a deep connection. My dad didn't have a deep connection to the name Harris anyway.
So why did he change the name?
I guess in that climate, like there was a lot of anti-Semitism and there was sort of some prejudice against like Jewish Russian names like Housekeeping. And so I think they'd faced that for, some time. And then I don't know what made them, like what the impetus was for the transition at that time. But yeah, they changed it to Harris. But so, yeah, I didn't have a strong attachment to it. So I was very excited to become a Geddes.
and here you are now. I'm excited to have you. Because, I mean, yeah, we are like essentially, me, you, and my brother we're the last Geddes.
And Moose and Toretto.
And Moose and Toretto, of course. Of course. You can't forget them. I never would. But everyone, this is the Kind of Funny podcast. Each and every week we get together to talk about our lives. I mean, that literally is what the Kind of Funny podcast always has been, even back when it was the Game Over Greggy show. We are just a group of friends hanging out, talking about all the things that we love, but also talking about some hardships that we work through. And, that's life, the good, the bad, the roller coaster that is life. And we have had y'all with us the entire way. You're there for the wins. You're there for some of the harder points, but no matter what, we get through it together. And I think that that's kind of like such a beautiful thing that we have been able to build here. It always has been about community. So it's great that when hardships do befall us.
You're getting me already.
It's great that we have such an amazing community out there, both everyone at home watching and listening, but then also like in here, literally in this studio, and all of our friends and family and everything. Like we're very lucky to have all this, and we're coming up on Kind of Funny's 10-year anniversary in January, which is really exciting, and that also means that we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary because we met weeks after Kind of Funny started. So you've kind of been there through all the ups and downs of Kind of Funny as well.
Yeah.
But without beating around the bush too much, just to get into it, a lot of people that are jumping into this might be like, why is Gia so quiet right now? Do you want to just quickly say, we'll get into the details and stuff later. Why are you so quiet, G?
I'm quiet because I just underwent surgery to remove some thyroid cancer that was discovered earlier this year. And so I'm on the mend. I'm 3 weeks post-surgery. They promised my voice would return after 2 weeks. But still sound weird.
It's much better, though. You were like really, really quiet before. But here you are now pulling a Kanye in all the right ways. You know what I mean?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Not a modern Kanye, but like, I mean, back in the day, Kanye got in the accident through the wire. This is your through the wire moment, everybody. So let's just have a little bit of patience. We have Roger running the show right now. Barrett just trying to help out, making sure that the mics could pick up. Geez, very fragile voice right now. But we're gonna have a good time today. A good time that we can only have thanks to all of your support. Thank you so much to all the Kind of Funny members out there. Of course, a Kind of Funny membership gets you This show's ad-free. You can watch live as we record them, just like Madeline Stanley, Lexi G, Ignacio Rojas, Cameron Kennedy, and so many others are doing right now. We appreciate all you so much. You also get an exclusive Greg Way. We keep saying it, but I'm going to continue to say it. Madeline Stanley was here last week as our kind of funny up-and-comer. She absolutely crushed it. So check out all the content that she was in. But if you're a kind of funny member, you get the Greg Ways that she did that were excellent. She answered questions about what it was like being here and answered a whole bunch of your questions. So go check those out if you are a kind of funny member. And an extra special thank you to our Patreon producers, Drummer Boy, Casey Andrew, James Hastings, Nathan Lamoth, and Carl Jacobs. You truly are the best of us and allow all of this to happen.
Did you just memorize all those names?
No, I had on.
Oh, you're reading.
I had on the phone. Although a lot of them, you got it. But
Yeah.
every month it's slightly different. So you just got the Drummer Boy. He's new.
Oh,
Yeah.
welcome, Drummer Boy.
Welcome, Drummer Boy. Langliam Neely, of course, in the chat right now too. We appreciate you. All right, G. We've had a crazy year.
Yes, we have.
Where do you want to start? Planning a wedding,
Yep.
right?
That started 5 years ago.
Yeah. So of course we thank you very much, Joey, coming in with
so
the tissues
sweet.
that are sure to be needed in a bit. But yeah, we got engaged in 2019.
Yes, we did.
And then the pandemic happened, and our plan was always, we're gonna take a couple years to plan, make sure the wedding's right. And then the pandemic happened, which made it all very hard. And then we're like, well, we're gonna do it at the studio, but then the studio kept getting delayed. So a lot of things getting in the way of all of it, right?
Yes.
But now here we are. We're sitting in the studio.
We're sitting in the studio. We're married. I'm a Getty's now.
Yeah, we got through the hardships that we expected, you know. And the pandemic, which we definitely did not. But like all the things that we knew were going to happen, we got through them. But then there was even more curveballs thrown at us. I guess I do want to give a little bit more context just so we can get out of the way, because I know people have been asking a lot of questions about certain things, and you're here so we can like talk about it together, which is nice.
Okay.
We got engaged 2019.
Yep.
Technically got married in like, I don't even remember when it was.
Yeah, let's see. So you proposed in February 2019, and then I think we got like paper married in like October of that same year. So we were already engaged. We were already sort of talking about a wedding, but had definitely not started planning. And then we had some other circumstances that sort of made us.
It purely taxes.
Yeah,
It was totally, it was a numbers game of like,
Yeah.
look, we're in this for the long haul. Like, we want to do the wedding right and stuff, but like, yeah, let's just get married on paper just so it's like done and legal and we can move on and like get all the benefits of that. But we went out of our way to be like, I don't want to remember this day. Like, this is not our wedding.
We could not tell you what day we got like paper married. It meant nothing to either of us. I truly could not. I would get it wrong.
Totally. So that's why I just wanted to explain to people, because some people are like Tim's been lying to us. And I'm just like, well, no.
I wouldn't like. We didn't call each other husband and wife. We didn't wear wedding bands. Yeah.
I do now.
Yes, he does.
I do.
He does.
But yeah, anyway, so all that happened. Planning the wedding.
Right.
The wedding was June 29th.
Yes.
It was this year. It was awesome.
It was awesome.
But it was very stressful to plan this wedding,
Yes.
right? A lot of work went into it.
Very stressful. I mean, it was so prolonged too. Like most people have sort of a year of stress. Like everyone gets stressed planning a wedding, but like ours was like stopping and starting and standing up the studio. Like there was just so many more stress points, and we were doing it on hard mode because we were doing it in a warehouse space, the studio that like is not a wedding venue, which meant just like a lot more work, a lot more work.
Yeah. But I would say that really working on the wedding was a year.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think we like signed a wedding planner to help us because we were having trouble like getting momentum ourselves about a year prior to our wedding. So yeah.
Yeah. So working on it, and I'd say overall did a great job planning, figuring it out, spacing things out, having enough time to handle everything. But then there was a curveball.
There was a curveball.
When was it?
So probably mid-April was I don't know how many of you in the chat or who are listening got really into like skincare during the pandemic, But like I was someone who didn't have like an intense skincare routine. And then during the pandemic, I discovered TikTok. And through TikTok, I discovered a lot of things that I should be doing that I wasn't doing, including like a 5-step morning and night skincare routine, which honestly helped me discover mid-April, because I was like thoroughly cleansing my face and neck, that I had this like big bump that I hadn't noticed before on my throat. And so like probably most of us, my first instinct was not that it was cancer. I thought it was like maybe a swollen lymph node or something that would go away, something that was non-serious. And so I waited a couple weeks, maybe a week or two, before realizing that this didn't seem normal. It wasn't going away. I didn't get sick, which I thought I might because maybe it was a swollen lymph node. And so then that's when I started the process of going in to get it checked out, which moved pretty fast because I'm pretty sure everyone I interacted with, from my doctor to the ultrasound tech and the person who ran the MRI, at that point, I think everyone but me knew it was cancer, and they just weren't really telling me until they confirmed.
And that's hard, right? Like cancer is such a scary word. Like even on the other side of it, it's like still such an intense thing. And I feel like a lot of us, and I can speak for myself, and I imagine I can speak for a lot of the audience. We're a bunch of children. It's like, something happens and you don't want to deal with it. You don't want to believe it. More than it's like, you just don't want to have to go out of your way and spend the money and figure it all out when it comes to doctors. Doctors are scary, all of that.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you for immediately being like, this is weird. This is wrong. I'm going to get it checked out. Like you want to go see a doctor like within a day. Like you like really prioritized it. And I am very envious of your responsibility, and it's admirable, and I hope that it will make me a better person in the future when things are coming up, because I'm happy that you dealt with it that quickly, because even if you hadn't, you would have been okay. But that's luck more than anything, because there was a time frame that they told you where essentially like you kind of had a year to deal with this now, but if you didn't find it out for another year, you wouldn't have.
Right. So I was lucky. I mean, it's hard to frame this experience as lucky because it's certainly been traumatic. And cancer is not something that I equate to like good fortune or luck at all. But I would say that catching cancer early is sort of a mixture of like being lucky, being responsible, there are probably other things too, but being proactive, knowing your body. You to bringing up the skincare stuff. Like I think that's very important, because a lot of people probably aren't too familiar with certain parts of their body or the way certain things feel or like are supposed to feel or be. I mean, the other thing too, I was actually just saying this to my therapist this morning. If you'd asked me 6 months ago to name a bunch of cancers, name 20 different types of cancers.
Name them.
Don't make me name them. No, but I mean, now thyroid would be the first one out of my mouth, but I would never have even listed thyroid cancer on my list of top 20. I don't think I could have come up with it. Top 50. I didn't know what a thyroid was. Well, that's not fair. I knew what a thyroid was because actually a lot of women have thyroid issues. I didn't personally, but I have a lot of friends who have Hashimoto's, who have Graves' disease. So I guess I could say I did know what a thyroid was, but absolutely did not know that it was a place that you could get cancer, or that it was like a top 10 or a top 30. I think it was like 13th most common cancer. Yeah. Like I had known. So I wasn't like, women sort of know certain places to look for cancer. I mean, your breast is a big one, and that's a very, very common cancer. And so we actually are trained from a young age to like know how to look for those. But I wasn't doing a neck check. Yeah. I was just doing my normal skincare routine. And then I know people also do skin checks, which also encourage people to do.
Send Nuggies in the chat says, was that a Housewives callback? The name them. Yes, it was. And I love that me and she get to be together. And someone in the chat recognizes that. You are absolutely the best, Jenny.
We say name them probably like at least once a week.
Shout out to Sutton. But so also shout out to Ignacio Rojas in the chat, who also is a thyroid cancer survivor, and obviously an amazing member of the community. Showing you a lot of support, G, and saying, hey, don't worry, your voice is going to come back. It just might take a while.
Thank you.
And I think that that's actually something that I want to bring up too. And you were alluding to this earlier, but like thyroid cancer is very common.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that have come forward that I never would have known.
I know.
And I don't necessarily want to out people that I don't know are comfortable with it, but I know some people very close to us that listen to the show have dealt with it. I know Greg's mom had it, like when I found out, one of the first people I told was Greg because of his experience.
Right.
And he really made me feel better because he was like, oh, my mom had that. It was okay. Obviously it's rough and surgeries and all that stuff, but this is, for bad news, this is good news. Right. And it's been absolutely wild how many people close to us have had this and survived and been great, but it takes something from you. And it's wild to be at parties with people that we've known for a long time, and it comes up and they're like, oh wow, like I went through that. And
Yeah.
it's no one has the same experience either, but
Right. Yeah, that has been really shocking and humbling to realize that so many people, both thyroid cancer and other cancers too, have been touched by cancer. I guess I didn't quite realize the extent that cancer touches like even people in their 20s and 30s. I mean, a lot of the people Tim's referring to were people who had thyroid cancer in college or in their early 20s. So yeah, definitely shocking. It's always a shock.
And yeah, it's definitely always a shock. And, you know, we were saying like cancer is such a scary thing. Cancer isn't the only thing though. And I feel like a big education process I had going through this with you is stuff that you at the very least were aware of because of how in touch with your body you are and how open your friends are about talking about experiences and all that. But I am shocked at how much it seems like women in our community talk about thyroid hormones and thyroid issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got my formal diagnosis on May 1st of this year. And, you know, as everyone listening probably knows, that was just 2 months before our wedding, but actually it was just 2 weeks before my bridal shower. And I looked around the room at my bridal shower to, you know, the sort of 20 to 30 women closest to me in my life. And all of them I had told at some point in the prior 2 weeks that I had gotten this diagnosis. I looked around and there was like 4 people that I could name in that room who had a Hashimoto's diagnosis. So,
what is that?
Oh my gosh, I always get it wrong. So there's hypo and hyperthyroidism. And so it's an autoimmune disease that either means your thyroid is hyperactive or underactive. And so Hashimoto's, I believe, is underactive, I think, meaning that you're not producing or you are producing enough, either too much or too little thyroid hormone, and can just cause, I mean, you're like many parts of your body, it works double time, triple time. It does a bunch of crap. Like it's your weight, your mood, your skin, your hair, like just all sorts of weird crap.
Yeah.
It's managed by your thyroid.
Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out how to navigate this with the least emotional impact. But like you saying that, like, so this happened, you found out in late April, which, like we're saying, very close to our wedding and your bachelorette party and your bridal shower, like all of that stuff. And that was like the most difficult time ever for you to get this type of news because you were forced to share it with people on a timeline that you didn't really get to choose. And I feel like seeing you, that was very, very difficult for you to, you know, be looking forward to this time when all your favorite people in your life are going to be together to celebrate you. And you either need to strategize sharing this scary news with them, beforehand, during, whatever, but also it kind of takes away from the moment of them just being able to just celebrate you, you know?
Yeah, I definitely felt robbed from those experiences, but these are happy tears actually right now in this moment because the theme of my bridal shower that my mom hosted was like a tarot card themed party, and we had a tarot card reader there. And what she told me in my reading was that as unfortunate as this and how sort of uncomfortable as this timing is, it actually had to be this way because I needed that community and I needed this abundance of love and people and support at the same time that I was going through something really scary and hard. So I actually look at that time as like meant to be, even though it did force my hand in terms of sharing. I also feel like it allowed me to be like really buoyed by all of my favorite people and my loved ones who really showed up for me. And they would have showed up anyway because it was my bridal shower, but they showed up in a way that I think I wouldn't have otherwise needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, even with the wedding, like we made it a concerted decision to like not talk about it, just not have that be a thing, and just try our best to celebrate and move through. And like that, I feel like even that, like me and you had a couple behind the scenes moments, and I'd say like even in front of the scenes moments of just like, this is crazy that like we're not acknowledging something that is happening right now that is like this one of the scariest things that's ever happened in my life. And I, at the end of the day, I'm very proud of us for navigating that the way we did. And I think that we're going to be able to look back at this moment as a win in every way. But you had to work really hard to get there. I've told you a million times how proud of you I am. Here the tears come, but I'm so proud of you for dealing with it so quickly and being able to take this seriously and continue to make the right decisions, like jumping into it throughout all the timing and you handling it with all your friends and everything as well as you did. You also then had to handle the doctor side of it and the MRIs and the surgery, but leading up to the surgery. And I mean, look, I feel like there's no other way to say this than it fucking sucks the way that health information is delivered to people. And I don't have a solution for it, but you going to do a test and then them sending you back a thing that said, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, you are at a 6, and anything 7 or above is essentially, hey, you're fucking fucked, is how it read.
We should just start calling you Dr. Tim. That was
Oh yeah.
so scientific. That's not, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it felt. I mean, basically what Tim's talking about is, you know, there's sort of steps to diagnosis. For me, it was sort of a physical exam where they felt the nodule, like an endocrinologist felt the nodule, and then sent me to get an ultrasound, or actually, sorry, first sent me to get an ultrasound, then felt the nodule. The ultrasound results sort of showed up without any narrative from the doctor. So what I got was a score from the ultrasound, and that looks at all of the qualities that they were able to observe in the ultrasound. And those qualities were bad. Like, it wasn't so bad that they guaranteed cancer, but it was essentially like, if you had one more point, if you were a 7 instead of a 6 on this scale, they wouldn't even have to biopsy. It would just be guaranteed cancer. And I'm honestly, in some ways, again, this is a bit of the luck, but it's sort of good that mine was so suspicious that they rushed me to be biopsied. And then I was able to get treatment quickly. I have talked to a lot of people who've had the same experiences or the same diagnosis as me and the same treatment, but their treatment experiences and diagnosis experiences were different in that in some cases the ultrasound was not as suspicious and they like let them sit with that nodule in their thyroid for like 5 years or something crazy because they deemed it like unsuspicious during some scan. And so I do feel, again, a little bit fortunate that mine looked even though it was terrible news, mine was suspicious enough to move quickly through the next steps of sort of diagnostic measures to then be. I mean, thyroid cancer in general is very slow growing. Tim said that earlier, like, had we caught it a year later, my circumstances probably would have been similar, although there's no guarantee. And the type of thyroid cancer they discovered I had after surgery was actually a fast-growing aggressive type. And they thought they sort of had characterized it as
Tall cell? Is that what it was?
yeah, exactly. So tall cell papillary. So papillary, they knew going into it, which is the most common kind, typically very non-aggressive and slow-growing. But post-surgery, when we got the pathology report back, they found out that it was a lot, as my surgeon said, less vanilla than they hoped to see, which does mean that I live with more fear than I think I would have had the pathology come back a little bit different, more vanilla. And so that was a tough pill to swallow when I was getting the good news that the surgery was successful and that I was 100% cancer free. At the same time, I was learning that what had been in my body for 5 months was much more aggressive, much more concerning than they thought. And that, I mean, they didn't really talk about whether there's a higher propensity for it to return, but I think that's the implication, is that the level of monitoring and the concern around it returning, like, the stakes are a little higher, and perhaps it is, I don't know this for a fact, but like more likely based on what I've Googled than other types of papillary thyroid cancer.
Yeah. Now, you said tough pill to swallow a second ago. Like, the levels of treatment that are required for cancer obviously range from annoying to absolutely life-changing and horrible.
I don't like the use of annoying. I think that diminishes even, I mean, as you said, the word cancer is
Yeah.
I mean, it's there for a reason. Like, it all comes with levels of fear, implications for the future too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like,
I mean, just now it's no longer, you should get things checked just to make sure you're good. Now it's like you're going to have to get checked constantly for the rest of your life.
Right.
And that there's so much fear associated with that, of things returning and being worse, especially with information you learned of, like, oh, it's actually scarier than you thought it was going into it. But there was a moment of them not knowing if they were going to have to take out the surgery, take out half of your thyroid or all of your thyroid, right? And like, even that was like a pretty stressful concept, because the treatment after that it was very, very different, right?
Yeah. So at the beginning, they have no idea, or it's hard for them to tell based on ultrasounds and MRIs and all of the scans exactly what they're dealing with in terms of like where it's placed, how much it's spread, all of that stuff. And so they had sort of said to me, we believe we can maintain half your thyroid, which means a shorter surgery and a likelihood that the rest of my thyroid will sort of kick into gear and like show up for me and produce all the hormones it needs to. And so I may not need to be on lifelong thyroid meds, but they really can't guarantee that until they're in there. And so even going into surgery, there was kind of no guarantee that I wasn't going to wake up with any thyroid left. And thankfully I woke up with part of my thyroid still there, which was such a relief. But I sort of was waiting for this pathology report with this worry that they were going to find that it had spread, and that basically not only would I need to lose my thyroid or all my thyroid, but that I would actually have to undergo a second surgery, which is very common. Like, a lot of the people I've talked to have underwent multiple surgeries. And so far, based on the results of the pathology and the results of the surgery, I don't need to go to any further treatment, and it was 100% successful. But again, you live in fear now, I think. Or I should say I live in fear now.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by New World Eternum. New World Eternum is a thrilling action RPG experience for console and PC players with a vibrant world, vast and beautiful setting, dynamic real-time action combat, and the freedom for players to choose how to forge their destiny. Combat is skill-based and dynamic, incorporating swords, guns, and sorcery so that you can build one character to rule them all as you explore Eternum and unravel the mysteries of the supernatural island that you can't leave. You love playing RPGs alone? You can in New World Eternum, or play cooperatively with your friends as you complete quests, get better gear, and level up. Greg played this at Summer Game Fest on PlayStation 5 and was caught off guard by how much he enjoyed it and how many hours he said he could see himself sinking into the final product. There's boss fights, cool enemies, crossplay, resource gathering, and crafting. So yeah, this sounds like a Greg game. New World Eternum is available now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. And even then, like, even with different people we know, like, the location of the surgery is different. It's like,
oh, yeah.
Even though thyroid is on your neck.
Yeah, we have a friend who, again, one of those people I had no idea, like, I have only known her a couple years, had no idea that 10 years ago she'd gone through the same thing I had. And her first surgery, she had multiple surgeries, but her first surgery, they had to go through her armpit all the way up to get.
Terrifying.
Yeah, which I was like, oh crap, that's heavy duty and weird. But good for scarring, I guess.
Yeah, and so that's the thing is, like, you know, the surgery is, it's a surgery. It's going to, like, affect your body, and, like, that's scary in its own right. And then you got it on your neck, and there was a lot of conversation of, like, your thyroid is a little higher.
Yeah.
But the scars, like, lower because they were able to actually...
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're, like, pretty sophisticated. Actually, one thing, and I think this is true for lots of common cancers, is, like, you're not the first person on the planet to get this diagnosis. It's traumatizing for you, but, like, you're often dealing with medical professionals and surgeons who literally do hundreds of these surgeries a year. And so, or at least maybe being in a metropolitan area where there are, like, centers of excellence and really good health care networks and systems and hospitals, like, I felt like I was in such good hands from really, really experienced doctors in my network. And so they promised me, like, even though my little tumor was, like, up here, that the incision point would be much lower, and that, you know, they sort of use best in class approach, like, sort of plastic surgery techniques to make sure that it's, like, as, like, modest of a scar as possible. And
I mean, even trying to find your kind of, like, wrinkles and, like, the creases that you have to, like, hide the scar in that. I think, like, that's such a simple thing that I wouldn't have thought about, but that's really, really impressive, right? Yeah, there you are.
No wrinkles.
Yeah, no wrinkles. Sorry. Whatever you want to call them. Creases. I don't know. I don't do any skincare stuff. But yeah, no, I was very, very thrilled for you when we found out that it was only half, because I know that was something you were really scared about going into the situation, the surgery. But again, I felt nothing but confident throughout the entire process being there. Like, they really, really treated you well and were, like, on it and made sure that they, like, I felt like they were pros, which is not my experience in healthcare for the most part. So, like you were saying, I feel like the people we had, like, they made us feel so good with the guys, like, oh, I've done, what was the number, like 100 of these?
My surgeon?
Yeah.
100 a year.
100 a year, and there's never been a problem. And it's
well, he didn't say there'd never been a problem.
Oh, well.
Maybe you heard that. That's not what he said.
Oh, well,
but he was very confident, and he was very assuring. And yeah, I like surrounded myself, like I said, with my community of people and a lot of people who'd experienced this before. But I also, like, went to professionals. I got a therapist who specialized in cancer patients, which I think has been immensely helpful, and would recommend that for anyone who can afford it and is going through it, and that's available to them. She also leads, like, groups within hospital networks for that, so you can also find some, like, resources, or you don't have to pay out of pocket for that kind of mental health care going through this. But crap, I was going to say something else and I lost my train of thought. Oh, one thing that she recommended, this therapist, that I think really helped me was, this sounds so, like, woo woo, but I swear it really helped me, was doing some special pre-surgery meditations. So like I woke up early the day of my surgery and days before too, just to do these meditations. And I think I went into the surgery feeling really in control and really relaxed about it. And I'm not pretending that has anything to do with surgery outcomes. I don't know that it does. It made me feel good.
Which is important because it's really scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sitting there next to you and
Tim was way more scared than I was.
I was very, very not happy. Like I'm sitting here and I was so stressed about the whole situation. And like, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to put you under. It's going to feel like 5 minutes to you, but it was like 5 hours. And I'm just sitting there just like, I hate everything about this, but you were just such a trooper and you kicked ass. Like you were so, so great. And I'll never forget walking in and seeing you post-surgery and you're just high as fuck. And it was not what I expected
I was
at all.
Having such a good time. Like everyone has asked me how the surgery was and I'm like, it was such a fun day. I was so high. I had what essentially was like a surgery party at my house after with like all my family. It was a great time. I had a blast.
My favorite part about the good parts of the post situation here were before we went in, they were telling you like, hey, like it's gonna affect your voice box for a while. Like you're literally getting surgery on your throat, so like it's gonna affect your speaking. But they were just like, but you'll be able to talk. You aren't gonna be able to talk for 2 weeks, is what they said. So me and G were preparing for this in different ways. Because I can't imagine her not talking. We talk a lot. So much of our relationship is just talking. And
I bought this like box of like poetry magnets. I don't know if you know what they are, but like in my mind, I was like, I'm just only going to speak through this like kit of poetry magnets. And everyone's just going to have to patiently wait for me to like find the words for like what type of soup I want to eat or like whatever.
Yeah. And thank God we ended up not needing to use those. I was also telling her, I was like, we don't need to buy these word poetry magnets. Like we have phones. There we go. There we go. We have phones that can like do all of this where it's just like, write something, text to speech, or whatever. She's like, no, I want the magnets. We got the magnets. I'm happy we did. That'll always be a part of the Getty's lore.
Yeah.
Those magnets. But it was funny because like me and you were like legitimately pretty stressed about you not talking for 2 weeks. Like that was just going to be such a weird thing for us to experience. And, we talked about it a lot. I feel like we talked even more than we normally do the week leading in just to make sure.
Get any possible thought like out now in case I can't share thoughts. I was like, am I just going to be held hostage while Tim talks at me about like.
About what?
Lord, about what? I don't know. I mean, what?
How are you blanking on this? I guess I don't talk about that much. She can't even think about it. She can't think about how often I talk about
God, you're
Best
such
Buy.
a nerd. I got overwhelmed with like all of the nerdy references at once, and I was like, is it like a weird, like Star Wars TV show thing that I gave up? I gave up on that universe a long time ago. So you just talk at me, and you know that I don't care, and I'm not up to date, like, or like describing like a video game that you're playing that
you're not playing,
that I'm not playing. Right.
That's
You was going to be me forced to listen to you talk about like all of the different like content that you're consuming that usually I'm not forced to listen to.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. But that didn't end up happening because the moment that we see you for the first time post-surgery, you were, like we said, very high. You're sitting in your little surgery chair, throne, I'm going to call it. And you're just holding court as me, your mom, and your sister kind of walk in. And we all sit around you. And you're just sitting there like giving the vibes of just like, welcome. I'm happy you've all gathered here. You're going to listen to me talk to you. And we're all like, how is she talking? And then the nurse was just like, yeah, like she came out and she just won't stop talking. She just keeps talking. And they didn't think it was possible, but here she is. And they thought they had the kryptonite to stop her, but no.
Yeah.
Some things.
You can't silence me.
No. And she was just jibber jabbering nonstop. It was just very quiet and weird. And now she's like quiet, but like her voice is like, it sounds like Gia. She sounded like this like detective noir, like, and you just had this vibe about you. You're just really like, you were really wiggly.
I'm telling you, I was like it was very fun.
Yeah, that
Very
was
high. They did not give me
hilarious.
any drugs to take home. Like it was sort of like they gave me the drugs for the surgery. It took a while for them to wear off, but like I got stuck with like Tylenol at home. So I like really rode that high.
Yeah, for as
Until-
long as you possibly could.
Exactly.
Can you can stop me if you want me to stop here. Can we talk about how funny it was who was at the house?
I mean, yeah, it was
You tell the story.
okay. So who knows if my family will ever listen to this? So I
I
will.
hope you all do.
Yeah. Hi, fam. But so my parents got divorced in my mid-20s, and they don't interact much these days. And my mom in the past year has gotten remarried. And the first time that my dad and my mom's new husband ever met was at our wedding. So they do not have a relationship at all. And I was so high in my home, and it was like my mom and her new husband and my dad and Tim and my sister and her boyfriend. And I was like tripping so hard watching my dad and my mom's new husband like interact for essentially the first time. And I was like, guys, like, with like trying to like, I was like, what is happening? This is crazy. And no one thought I was weird except for me.
It was the funniest thing because it was like all of us were in on this. We're like, just to be clear, it's all good. There is nothing
Yeah.
weird about it. Everyone is an adult that gets along.
Yeah, everyone's a nice
It's all
person.
love. Nothing but love. No drama whatsoever.
Yeah.
But G's here insisting on having a little but what if there was drama? It was kind of the vibe, but in this fun little wiggly way. And I kept giving you the out of like, hey G, we don't need to throw a little post-surgery party right now. You know? Like you're recovering, you're doing, but like we can if you want. You're like, yes, let's invite them and let's invite them and like my mom's gonna bring matzo ball soup, and it was just like she's gonna bring soup that she was making for you to eat for the week because you weren't gonna be able to eat solid foods, and now you're gonna share that with all of these people. Are you sure this is the plan you want?
It was honestly, I highly recommend if your parents are divorced and are being like forced to interact, get really high. Like it honestly made it so entertaining and like much more pleasant than I think it would, or like less stressful, I should say. It was perfectly pleasant.
So the rest of us were incredibly sober.
I kept trying to get we have so much leftover alcohol from our wedding, but it's like weird alcohol. Like it's not like alcohol that Tim and I would drink at home. It's like the ingredients for espresso martinis and like just a shit ton of triple sec, but like no tequila. And so I kept trying to force everyone to like party with me because I was high, and I was like, you guys should have some triple
Have some
sec.
espresso martini mix right now. And it's
no
like,
one
gee, we're
drank.
good. We're good. But we ended up having to order some food so that like everyone would actually have a meal. And we got this amazing Mexican spot called Elena's, and they have these tortilla chips.
Oh my God.
They're so good.
Okay, yeah, this is actually very funny.
They're so good. And like they're the type of chips where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna have one or two of these, and then you're coming back constantly. But go for it.
Okay, so I thought maybe I was just really high, but it turned out Tim had the same observation, which is that like my mom's new husband like could not stop eating these chips. Like it was like an addiction or like a weird tick. Like he just was like beelining for the chips, and it was so funny. And I was for days I was in pain, right? Like I was post surgery, and I would just remember him like crossing the room for the chips, like beelining for the chips all night. And like I would just start laughing even though I was in pain.
Now, mind you, two things here. You know what? Maybe three things. One thing is these chips are good.
They're really
Okay,
good.
so it's just
And
like,
but to be fair, I wasn't allowed to eat it. Like,
Yeah.
like, or I was not that I wasn't allowed to. I was uncomfortable and couldn't eat them. Like I had to eat soup, and so he was like expressing all this concern for me, and he
Yeah.
was like, "You should not. You should save your voice. Like preserve your voice. Like you shouldn't. You should like really rest." But then like in between, like him expressing concern, he was
he's just chomping on the chips.
just-
That
even
is
now-
true. That is true. But what was really funny is that like these chips are just great. So it's like no matter who you are in what situation, you're gonna want to keep going back to these
Yeah.
chips. But then the other thing is like I truly in my heart of hearts believe that he wasn't like nervously eating the chips for any like drama reason, but G was so in her days so convinced that he was like uncomfortable in the situation, and you're like trying to call him out of it. He's going back to the chips. He's going back to the chips. And like, mind you, it sounds more like he's going back to the chips. Like, you have no voice to yell, and like you were just laying on the couch, and like everyone's trying to get you to be quiet, and you just would not stop talking and calling him out for eating the chips. And it's just like, let the man eat the chips.
It's so funny because like everyone has a bunch of shit with their family, right? Like no family is perfect. Like there's all these weird stressors, and like I do feel so lucky that like the drama with my family is that like my mom's new husband's just like addicted to chips.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the issue.
Addicted to chips. Now, can I bring up the socks?
We have to talk about the socks.
Okay. We have to start with the origin of the socks.
Okay. So it was a couple of years ago. We went to my mother's house and her new husband's house. I think it was before they were married, but they were already living together. We went to their house for Thanksgiving, and we noticed that my mom's husband was wearing these like novelty socks. Now, the novelty of the socks was that they were covered in the eggplant emoji, like just covered in it.
There's all over print eggplant emoji socks.
Yes.
Yes.
And so we're all starting to notice them, like me, my sister, again, Tim, my sister's boyfriend, and we're like, what's up with the dick socks, like the eggplant socks? And so like one of us, I think it was Tim,
Probably me.
like brings it up and it's like, oh, cool socks, Frank. Like did you
Like,
ask?
that's a choice.
Like that's a choice. And we're like, do you really like eggplant? I mean, yeah, this is like a man in his 60s. Like maybe he doesn't know the reference. Like maybe he just really likes eggplant. And you have to say the next part because I can't say it without laughing.
Well, so he didn't know the reference. Like he didn't know what they were.
When
Like
he bought them, he didn't. By the time we asked him about it, he did.
Well, it's because we told him earlier. Like we were laughing at him so much that he learned what they were because we told him what they were. He just thought that they were funny looking eggplants and like whatever. But I'm going to demand that you say what he said.
No, so I insist that he had already heard from someone else, not us, what it was, but like hadn't purchased them with that in mind. Like had purchased them because he liked eggplants. Someone else prior to this Thanksgiving event had like told him. And we were like probing a little bit at Thanksgiving, sort of asking like, oh, do you know what they mean? Like, and he goes, no, don't make me say it. It's so funny.
I don't remember I'm
do.
only not saying it because I don't remember the words.
I remember. I'll say it. It's just, he goes, oh, you mean that they're big fat dicks?
Cocks. He said big fat
No,
cocks.
he didn't say cocks.
Yeah.
He did
A
not.
big, healthy, fat cock is what he said.
I don't think he said healthy.
And we're like, whoa! Like you went way too hard with this, dude.
Yeah.
And he kept doing the strong.
Yeah, he did do that. It was very funny. Anyway, he chose to wear those to my house on my surgery day.
Which is hilarious. I mean, just and to me, I read that as, oh, it's a throwback joke, like we all made fun of this or whatever. She is convinced that he wore the socks as like a power move against her dad, which is the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, can you imagine? Like, this is the level of drama we're talking about here. Is like, oh, the new husband just came in wearing his eggplant socks. Better watch out.
Okay, I said it's a theory. I didn't say I'm convinced. It's a possibility. I was really high. Okay, a lot was going on in my head. But it was really nice to be surrounded by family.
Yeah.
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 All of us eating matzo ball soup.
Oh yeah, of course. Of course. Well, gee, I want to continue talking about everything. But you know what, Raj? We're gonna slice the ads in a little earlier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I did not realize
thinking.
that. Gee, how long do you think we've been going?
48 minutes.
Wild.
That's been killing
Wild.
it.
Let's keep going.
I don't know if I have no concept of time here. Like
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's 48. Doesn't feel like we've been talking for 50 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Where do we want to go from here? Because I feel like we're in a good vibe, so I don't want to like take into I mean, fuck it. Hard left turn back to some more like the sad side of this, because something I really want to talk about
Yeah.
is, I would say, like the darkest reality of this to me about you. And again, I'm sorry of how emotional this is, but I think that this is an important thing to talk about, having you on the show. You are such a strong person. You always have been such a strong person. And you're somebody that takes such good care of their body and values that. You work out every single day. You eat, I would say, on a scale of very to incredibly, or a range from very to incredibly healthy the majority of the time. And you really, really care about all this stuff. I feel like the hardest thing for you, and you said something very early on that stuck with me, is that you feel like your body betrayed you. And I feel like that's been something you've talked about, going to therapy, multiple different therapists, the cancer therapist and standard therapist, to talk about all this stuff. But can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I probably haven't shared this before. I haven't shared much of this, but I actually like grew up with a chronic pain condition in my adolescence, that I really, really struggled. I suffered, and was like in and out of sort of healthcare experiences, I guess. Like there wasn't really, they couldn't really diagnose it, so there wasn't like a lot of treatment, but it was more like trying to diagnose it and then managing the pain. And I sort of, it's made me be like very, well, it's made me who I am today in a lot of ways. If we have time, I'll list some of them.
Well, I mean, I think a major way is how invested in public health you are.
Right. That's the leading way for sure, is like, you know, I went on to study healthcare to get my master's in public health, to work in the digital health space. Like that's a passion of mine, and 100% inspired by my experiences in healthcare systems, and my sort of frustration with them. And it also made me an extremely empathetic person. Like, I know everyone's like, I'm an empath or whatever, and like that's sort of cringy to say. And I'm not pretending like I'm an empath forever. Although I would say I lean on the spectrum of being an empathetic person in general, but I'm specifically very, very empathetic to physical pain. It's something that I experienced a lot of in like some really formative years, and my experience, because I didn't have like a clear organic cause for the pain or a diagnosis, didn't necessarily garner like a ton of sympathy from the average person who didn't understand it. Like it wasn't like I had a cancer diagnosis. It wasn't like I had a diagnosis at all. And so I was just like, I'm suffering, I'm in pain. And so I have a lot of patience and empathy for people who are physically uncomfortable or suffering or in pain. And it also made me really think deeply and continue to think deeply about like the mind-body connection, and how we think about our bodies, and how much we blame ourselves for like bodily like corporeal experiences, like you sort of going on about how healthy I am and how betrayed I felt because I take such good care of my body. Like I that makes me feel uncomfortable to say, because who's to say that, like, I mean, we're all so susceptible to terrible illness, to cancer specifically. Like, I don't know, something like 40 to 50% of people are going to get cancer at some point in their lives, right? Don't quote me on that. That's like that's like AI Google telling me that. But like, basically, people who are on the very extreme of taking care of themselves and caring about that, and then people who are very much not on the other extreme. I don't know that they're equally susceptible, but they're certainly both highly susceptible to getting cancer, to getting other diseases. And so I feel uncomfortable drawing that connection so dramatically of like, I should be cancer free because I like use a treadmill daily, or you know what I mean? But I do feel betrayed. And I think anyone or many people in my position feel that way, where I feel young, I feel healthy, I have done all the right things, and I still right things, whatever that means. Yeah, I'm mindful about my health choices, and it does not protect you from anything. And I don't even, I don't know what else to say but that, really. It's just, it's a shock.
And again, I say this as very much a third party to these experiences, but I feel like the old saying of like, you don't know what other people are going through, like something that was very interesting for me to kind of take in was, as this diagnosis happened and as we're hearing more and more and more people that have dealt with this and were dealt with it in a timely fashion and had it taken care of and are now quote unquote okay, and still dealing with a lot, but like they were able to move through it a bit. I'm trying to find the right words here. And I was starting to feel really good about all that. Like, okay, she's going to be okay. That to me is what matters, is she going to be okay? And pretty early on, it was like, there's a very high likelihood she's going to be okay. And I wasn't getting that sense from you of feeling that. And it wasn't until you expressed to me the feelings of your old chronic pain situation, which predated us. And I remember even early on in our relationship, like, I feel like one of the big first steps in a relationship and like the communication going from just kind of that like fun honeymoon, let's get to know each other, is the trauma bonding.
Yeah.
It's usually like the third or fourth date on The Bachelor, but I feel like you sharing with me like your experience prior to me, and it wasn't that far away from me being in the picture, but it was far enough that it was like you were good. And I mean, since then, like that's never flared up once. There hasn't been any situation at all. So it wasn't until you kind of brought that framing up to me of dealing with this new thing and the extra level of fear and concern based on how you used to feel, like that just it sat with me in a way of just like, man, like everyone can hear this information and take it differently. And even though it's going to be okay, deeply, it's not okay. Like it's scary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that brings up a good thing. It's like we can only speak for ourselves. And so I can only speak for my experience and coming into this with me and my background. But to me, I had undergone this like decade plus of chronic cyclical pain that wasn't really treatable because they didn't know what it was. And I really suffered, and I feel like I never got closure because we never really landed on a diagnosis. It just over time faded and went away and lessened. And I feel like because of that, there was like a lot of sort of unresolved trauma from that this diagnosis really ignited for me. Not to say that had I not had that experience, I also still wouldn't have been traumatized by hearing that I have cancer, because that's the thing, is like, that's why I'm kind of like, this is my experience. Who knows, had I had a different experience, what I would be feeling. But like for me, certainly, it brought up a lot of fear. So one of the things that when I was in my adolescence and I was so frustrated with Western medicine because they were not doing a good job helping me, I turned to a lot of woo-woo stuff, like through that decade plus of pain. Like I went to psychic healers. I went to, I believe in acupuncture. I'm not calling that woo-woo, but I went to a lot of acupuncture. I continue to go to acupuncture. So I went to a lot of like alternative or Eastern medicine. And so I returned to a bit of that during this cancer diagnosis. Like I went to a psychic healer. Like I went to some of these places that I had sort of tried to find relief when I was younger. And one thing the psychic healer said to me was that this was like a bookend experience to the first bookend of my adolescence, and that I sort of needed this to get closure from what had happened to me in my like teens and early 20s. And what I liked about that is that it meant that this cancer thing was not going to be this long, prolonged experience, that it was going to be more finite, there was going to be closure from it, and that it actually would force me to grapple with and wrestle with some stuff that I really had not worked through back then, including going to therapy and specifically working on in therapy, like this diagnosis and my relationship with my body and with healthcare and all that stuff. Like, I mean, it already has kind of pushed me to work through stuff that I hadn't wanted to before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talking about the timing and how prolonged it all is. Like, something that really surprised me is that they essentially gave you a surgery date, or at least like a proposed one, that was like a week after our wedding. So that was kind of the timeline we were working on, was like really, really fast. And then that just ended up not happening. And then they punted it, and then they punted it, and it just kind of turned into and it started feeling like it didn't matter. And that was really scary. And I feel like that's another thing that, you know, the healthcare system gets complicated, but like I didn't appreciate how it was your entire world, and we're talking about this on the daily, and like we're planning around it and all of that, and then it's just like it felt like it didn't matter. And even though there was a good side to that, like they were looking at it as if like, hey, it's not that it doesn't matter, it's just not, we don't need to handle this right now. But that's just hard. It's hard to deal with when, gee, you know, like I want them to take care of you now.
Yeah. That was alarming. I mean, it's alarming to get a cancer diagnosis and then to be talking to the surgeon and have them say, you have a year. We usually suggest getting it taken care of in a year because it's slow growing. And they basically have, you know, this is a really common cancer. They have a lot of data around like the sort of latency between getting diagnosed and having a surgery. And so they sort of knew with confidence based on sort of all of the metadata that they could wait.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't make it feel any easier or safer to wait. It was freaky. I mean, my dad was like so upset about the waiting. Like he killed me a lot. He pressured. I mean, he was very, very concerned. And I said, I want to wait till after our wedding. We've waited 5 years for our wedding. I don't want to wait any longer. And my dad was like very concerned about that. And then we ended up waiting a lot longer than that. But they did confirm, I mean, how can they confirm, but that nothing had changed from the initial diagnostic tests and scans and all that from when they took it out. Like we did ask that question in the post-surgery consult, like, did anything change in the last 5 months? And they said no. So.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you bring something up about your dad being so concerned, and like, God, shout out to your dad. He was so amazing throughout this whole process. Like he cares about you so much, obviously, but like the way he cared about you with this, like it really, really hit him for obvious reasons, as it hit a lot of us. But, you know, everyone starts Googling and like trying to figure things out and getting the information. And I feel like that, you know, there's a value to that, and obviously make sure you're checking sources and making sure everything is like as legit as possible, especially these days. But it could be scary to like be trying to get more information, and then you even more on your shoulders of like you are the one that knows the most and having to correct people when they, I heard this or I read this, and you have to be like, no, well, actually, whatever. That's just even just more stress on you, you know. And I felt bad for you having to deal with all of that.
Yeah, there's a couple things like I want to respond to in what you just said because it's so true. Like the Google piece, when you have thyroid cancer, especially if your diagnosis is papillary thyroid cancer, Googling is actually like your best friend because it's so positive about the prognosis and the stories are all good. Like even the worst case scenarios are good. Like people, and my surgeon said the same thing. I mean, it was very much validated by my doctors of like, you're going to live to, he said to me, my first conversation with the surgeon, he said, you're going to live to like another 70 years and you're going to die from something else. And like him saying that to me and then that being corroborated by Google, like it was such a relief. Not everyone has thyroid cancer. Like people have other scary diagnoses where Google is a lot less friendly and a much scarier place. And it's not, maybe, perhaps not as healthy. I'm not going to tell you what to do whatever you want. I can't keep anyone off Google. And it can feel empowering to be able to do your own research, but it can be a much scarier and like, yeah, it can be a rabbit hole that is dark and can put you in a really scary headspace. And so I'm, again, lucky as you can be with a cancer diagnosis to have had Google be so positive and friendly. However, once I got sort of the subtype from the pathology report of the type of papillary that I had, it was a lot less friendlier. And I realized how scary Google can be and how scary Instagram can be and how scary TikTok can be. Like when you start looking at the hashtag tall cell thyroid cancer, whatever it is, like the stories aren't as friendly. And so it did make me realize like, oh, I need to limit myself and create sort of like a philosophy around how I approach Googling this stuff, even down to like my scar healing and what it might look like in the future. Like there's so many like beautiful people with beautiful scars. Sofia Vergara has had thyroid cancer. And if you zoom in on red carpet photos, like she looks great, but you can see it, but it's like a cute scar. And I've been looking at lots of hot girls with thyroid scars.
Like the quickness at which her Google searches went from like thyroid scars, like how bad thyroid scars, to hot babes thyroid scars. Like it was in a
Do you
second.
think there's like a Pornhub that's like,
oh, let's not go there.
Okay, sorry, I won't put that out there.
But no, it was very, very funny looking over at you while we're watching TV and you're just like Googling things. And I'm like, what are you looking at? And it was
like
just
hot
like
girls.
Yeah.
But like if you zoom in on, but I'm just zooming in on their necks.
Well, you said told me a story that was crazy where there was somebody from Love Island, which is a reality show that is like a daily reality show of a bunch of hot people on an island, and somebody like the audience realized that she had
They noticed a nodule like I had from just watching her on this like high volume show. Like there was just so much footage of her. And they reached out to her mom and her on which is like kind of freaky. Like, don't DM people's moms. But in this case, and she actually is a great example of someone whose story is they biopsied it and it was like unclear whether it was malignant or benign. So they opted to surgically intervene and remove it anyway. So she had a hot girl thyroid scar. I follow her on Instagram now and have been checking up on her healing. But yeah, even that, you can see really like scary stories about what your scar might look like if it heals wrong or something. It's like, yeah, I mean, the internet can be...
It's scary, yeah. And, there's also a reality to that. And also like, you just got to kind of deal with what you dealt with some of these things of just like, obviously looks are not everything, but
no.
Even if it turned out horribly, it's like you got to be able to own it and all of that. But I'm very happy for you that yours is great. You look fine. And something you were joking about a long time ago throughout our relationship is how you're a cool girl, but you're not a cool girl. You know what I mean? Like you're super cool, but like you're not cool. You know what I mean?
Okay. This is so funny because like the night Tim and I met, one of the things that we bonded over was Tim, like the movie Gone Girl had just come out and Tim was like very obsessed with the movie and I had like read the book because I'm a book nerd, not a video game nerd, and also had watched the movie. And there's this amazing speech that I think is in both. It's very powerful and profound in the book. I think it is also in the movie. And there's this speech that she gives about being a cool girl, like TM, that I identify with, but it's not the same as like being cool. It's like playing it cool, like not being ruffled by things, like sort of letting things go, letting things roll off your shoulders. Like it's kind of aligned with me being a people pleaser. Like it's like I play it cool even when I'm not feeling cool about something. that is the type of cool girl I am.
Yeah.
Just to
You're
clarify.
you're just very cool in like a positive way overall. But you're not Fonzie cool, which I also realize is not like the pinnacle of cool, but like let's be real, it totally is. Get fucked, Nick. Get winked, excuse me. But you've always talked about how like you don't you're I don't even know the best way to explain it, but like you don't have edge. You don't have that edge to you. You know what I mean? This is all coming from you. I'm not the one saying this.
I have an edge.
Well, now you do. Now you have a cool scar.
I see where you're going.
Yeah,
that's true.
Sorry, maybe I should have helped you.
Yeah, I was like-
I was ending with that, but yeah, you've been pretty stoked that you're gonna have a badass scar. You do. Now you're cool. You've
Now
done
I'm
it
cool.
officially.
I made it. That's exciting.
How's it feel?
I mean, I could do without it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anything can come from this, me being cool, I guess that's one pro.
Yeah. Yeah. How's Moose doing?
Our dog Moose.
Mm-hmm.
He's good. One thing that's come from this experience is I got to be home with our dogs for like an extended period of time because I was out of work, just really healing. And I made Tim buy a bunch of staircases for Moose, who's feeble and can't, like,
Feeble.
not feeble because he's old. Like, he's a young dog. He just isn't able physically to like get on surface,
jump.
like to jump on couches, to jump on beds. So we used to just have like one staircase to our bed. Now every couch, every bed, like every chair in our house has a set of stairs for him. Because I was also unable to lift him because I was like healing. And so he can now get on the guest bed, get on the couch. He's empowered. He's set up for success now.
What about little T, Toretto?
Toretto's good. Toretto is not feeble. He is able to jump and takes advantage of that skill at all points in time. He licks a lot,
Yeah.
like a tick.
Yeah.
He licks, not like a,
Not that bug tick. Like a nervous tick.
right.
Yeah.
Like a nervous tick. Like you want it to be affectionate. You're like, oh, is he showing me love and like romance? But it's like,
Romance.
I think he's in love with me.
Yeah.
He looks into my eyes very like romantically, but he just like licks and licks and licks and licks and licks like a nervous tick.
Yeah.
It's cute.
Roll Tide in the chat says, I got my almost 11-year-old dog stairs for my bed and she refuses to use them. Shakes my head.
We got some tips.
Yeah. Which are?
Treats. Just
Yeah, you have to treat him.
We lined the stairs with treats until he just got desperate enough.
And now he runs up because he also would not use the stairs.
Yeah, I took
Like he just wouldn't do it for months. And then eventually he was desperate and he did. He ran up and now we can't stop him. He loves running up.
That's true. I actually think he like unlocked the skill while we were out of town and my sister was watching him. So I think he just got desperate because like maybe he wasn't doing a good job communicating to her that he needed to be lifted onto our bed.
Yeah.
He's like, fine, I'll do it myself.
I'll do it myself. Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah.
What a little guy.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to talk about before we head out?
I mean, I guess the one thing that we touched on a little bit when I was talking about sort of like my bridal shower, but the one thing that I know we haven't covered is just how many people, like what a community we have and how many people showed up for me and for us. And I know we didn't share it publicly, so we didn't give like the broader kind of funny community a chance to show up for us. But those who did know in our lives, like really delivered, I think. And I just feel really,
I've never seen more flowers in my life than what our
Yeah.
living room looks like right now.
yeah, it was very moving. And from lots of different pockets of our life, I felt really, and it's like, it's not just the physical gift of it. It's not that, like that means a lot too. But it was that like, I felt like I was really in people's hearts and like on their minds because there were people who sent us things who like learned about my surgery date, like months before. And flowers showed up or a gift package showed up like the day of my surgery. And so I really felt like considered and loved. And that I'll never forget how that felt in like the week of my surgery, just having so much, the outpouring of love in different ways, like packages and flowers, but also like texts and follow-up texts. And I don't know,
I mean, your Instagram post that you did, the kind of like was the reveal to the broader world. Like, I mean, I can't look at it without tearing up, to
I know.
full on crying. Like,
I know.
people have been so nice and supportive, and like it feels so, I don't know, like words can just be words, but they also can be so much more. And like you were saying, I can feel the love through this. Like I feel so much support for you, and it's like, obviously, like, you're the best person in the world, so of course people are going to support and love you, but like to see it in action like is so heartwarming. And it's just like, man, life's worth living knowing that there's so many amazing people out there that can support you and just really make you feel better, even just for a moment in a very dark time. But to be on the other side, there's still so much we got to do and so far to go and everything. But like, as of right now, G, you're cancer free.
Yeah. Not to like take away from your high note that you're trying to end on with the cancer free, but one thing that I saw from that Instagram post and all of the like feedback that we got from it, and also like other people who I talked to in person and told them about, like, telling people that you're sick or telling people that you need help. It's very vulnerable and it can be very awkward. And everyone's different. I can speak for myself. I felt very awkward and vulnerable. And like I said, I'm a cool girl in the sense that like, I'm not someone who shares, like overshares. I'm not someone who asks for help a lot. Like, I sort of am pretty self-sufficient. And I do put a lot of pressure on myself to like be invulnerable and put together. And so like, it felt very scary for me to talk to people about this, to tell people at work. That was very hard. And to see the outpouring of love and the feedback that I've gotten in all the different avenues has made it feel worth it to be vulnerable. And like, I guess I didn't expect that. And it made me feel, yeah, both supported, but also felt safe being vulnerable. And I didn't know that I would feel that way going into it. I felt very scared.
I mean, I started by saying this, and I want to end by saying I am so incredibly proud of you, not only for what I was saying earlier of dealing with this so quickly and so professionally and proactively, and you did it just so right. And you, in a way that again, it inspires me, and I hope that inspires others out there to care about themselves that way. But I am also just so proud of you for what you were just saying there of like taking every single one of these events and moments, like your bridal shower or like posting about this for the first time, and caring and thinking about all that stuff so much, because it is very hard. Like, even receiving positive support can be very difficult, and that can be hard to explain, but how overwhelming support can be, and like seeing you navigate all that stuff and make all the decisions yourself. And like, I'm here to help you, and I was there every step of the way.
We did not agree
on a lot of things. Yeah. But I mean, even you being on the show talking about all this, it's like I wanted to make sure that you were in control of your destiny and were able to change your mind at any second about all the things. And I'm just so proud of you for, I think, making great decisions every step of the way and being very true to yourself, but also evolving yourself. And I loved who you were, but I love who you are now even more.
I love you too.
I love you. Oh, man. And I love all of you so much at home for watching us. Thank you so much. Let us know in the comments below what's made you happy this week. You know what I mean? Let's bring some love into all of this. And again, G, thank you so much for sharing your story and for being so awesome. Your voice will be back. Gia's voice will return at some point. Until then, I'm just gonna have to listen to a lot of whisper talk, but I'm used to it. You know?
It's not so bad.
Not so bad. Anyways, I love you all. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Until next time, goodbye.